Hello, friends and family, and welcome to Rich's World. It is the middle of February, it's 31 degrees out, and I've already got spring fever, so I think it's time to straighten up the greenhouse. So let's go in the greenhouse and I'll talk to you about what I'm going to do today. Well, welcome to the greenhouse, and whoa. It's not terrible, but it needs to be straightened up. There's things that need to be tossed out and organized. Now, the one thing that I've done since last year is I had it wired for electric. And that's important because there's a fan up there. And that's the biggest reason to have electric in your greenhouse. It gets hot out here, and it gets hot in here early. When it's 85 degrees outside, it can get to 100 in here. And if you don't have an exhaust fan, I have to open the windows, the doors, and have the exhaust fan on. It gets so warm. And then at the end of the day, I turn it off. Or you can put it on automatic, which it will be on. And you need to open the doors, close them in the evening. So if you're going to put a greenhouse in, you're going to want to electrify it. You're going to want a fan. Gonna want a fan. Terrible grammar, isn't it? Okay. Now, next thing, I want to talk about what's in here and what needs to leave. I keep rocks and things in here, stones when I dig them up, because these are great to put in the pots before you put soil in at the bottom. They weigh the pot down, they give you good drainage. So don't throw your stones, if you don't know what to do with your stones and things in your garden when you're digging, put them aside in a bucket and you can use them in your potted things. The next thing I need to do is figure out how much soil I have, what I'm going to need, what I'm going to plant this year. Um, this will be just totally full of seedlings. I may have to bring a table in here. Um, when to start in your greenhouse? It depends on if you're going to if you're having an early spring or a late spring. Last year it was fairly early. The thing you want to watch out for, you really do not want to start your seeds too early. I mean, you're having fun. It's a great time out here. But if your frost isn't over yet, you don't want to plant before your frost's over. And then your plants get too big and too leggy. So you don't want to start them in February, early March. You want to get more in the middle of March to April, depending on where you're living. My brothers in Dallas, they're almost having spring already. My friends down in Charleston and Somerville, they've had 85-degree days already. We're having a 31-degree day here. So it all depends on where you live. You have to know your climate, and you don't want to start too late or too early. So it's kind of a delicate thing. Next thing I want to talk about are your containers. Now, I bought these pots at an overrun place. Now, they're good size. They're made in Italy. They're really good. And if you look at them, they're very good quality. These pots are wonderful. I found them in like a closeout. Every town has these overrun places now. If you go to one of the box stores, you're going to pay a lot more than $12.99 for these, which is what they were priced at. The good news is if you go in the autumn, they want to get rid of all this stuff. So I will put rocks in the bottom, fill them with soil, and put them all around the patio and the steps into the garden, and plant them with all kinds of begonias and things, and it'll be beautiful. And it gives you a little height and softens your patio. So Remember in autumn, that's when you're going to get your buys. Sometimes they even bomb out shovels and things. Usually if they have storage, they won't do it. But sometimes you can get some really good buys on some beautiful things. I like the terracotta, um, depending on where you're at. If you're in a place that's very hot, you might not want the terracotta. You may want plastic that looks like terracotta to hold the moisture in. So that's the pot story there. I'm going to sit down and talk. How did I get involved in gardening? That's a really good question. My grandparents were gardeners. They used to make their own wine, and I think he may have made his own beer. I don't think he drank beer. I think he drank wine. My earliest recollections of childhood was running through my mother's garden. It was a good size. She had lots of vegetables and lots of flowers. And I remember this one area, as a child, it seemed huge. She did 3-foot beds, two, with a path in the middle and very long with cleome in it. They're those spidery looking pink and white. And of course I was younger, so they were taller than I was. And I remember running through that and thinking that was wonderful. She and my grandmother were out there all the time, dividing iris, planting mums, planting vegetables, canning peaches. It was a lifestyle that they embraced. So it seemed normal to me. My aunt was also a gardener, and she used to do wonderful things. There are certain seeds that you can take and just throw them and cast them in the fall. And in the spring, they just come up in the garden. Now, you can't do that with all your seeds, but certain things you can. Poppy seeds, certain poppies, you can do that with. I just did it. Cleome seeds, you can do that. Gardening has gotten very expensive. We've talked about this before. So you want to propagate, and they're starting in March. You can get out there on these warm days. You will have a couple of nice days in central Pennsylvania in March. And I'll get out there and I'll start dividing sedum. You cannot kill sedum, and it is prolific. They tell you not to divide your daylilies until later in the summer. I do it in the spring. I have so many. I'll just dig them up and divide the clump, put it back in, and make the area bigger, put it somewhere else. So you want to, in art school, they tell painters to move the color around the canvas. You don't want to just put a blue here. You might want to put some blue over there. Same thing with gardening. You want to move it around, the color and the plants around your gardens. So if you divide, your plants are going to be healthier. They're going to last longer. So if you divide your plant and it's good for the health of the plant, and you don't have space for the other half of the plant, give it to a friend. Start a plant exchange. Give it to your local historic society. There's somebody in town that wants it. But dividing is very important. So, I try to think through all this to get myself geared up for the season ahead. Now, I love spring. It's my favorite time of the year. I'll make a trip to Colonial Williamsburg to look at their gardens. That gives me a boost. I'll come home and plant more boxwoods. How much time do you have? How much money are you willing to spend on it? Can you hire someone to help you? 30 years later, I'm having help 2 to 3 days a week, 4 hours a day. It gets pricey. I don't mind. But think about that. Can you afford to have help? The greenhouse. One of the things I want to do, now my greenhouse is fairly new, it's 3 years old, so I'm going to look around, make sure everything is fine, that there's no creatures living in here. There's no cracks or breaks. Does anything need painting or touched up? So that's another thing I need to do is go around, check the building out. Second thing, I'm having excavators come in to dig from the well to the building, and I want to run a pump, piping to the well, and I want to put the pump for the well in here. So that's going to be a couple of days, figuring that all out, talking with the people. I'm having gravel pathways put in from the house across the lawn to this door into the chicken house, because driving the cart back and forth makes it muddy. So that's another project I've got underway. So I want to get that out of the way before it's time, before that gets in the way of gardening. Now, if you can't afford a greenhouse, or you don't want to put one in for 5-6 weeks of the year, because that's really what it's about. And as my grandson says, Grandpa, this is going to be a shed someday. He's 8 years old. I said, well, right now it's a greenhouse. Now, if you don't want to hassle with a greenhouse, you can buy these wonderful little greenhouses that you can put outside or in a room. You put grow lights, and that's what I did before I did this, and they work. They're great. The next thing I want to talk about are trays. You can get these on Amazon. You can buy them in some stores, and these are nice because you pack your soil in, and you put your seeds in, put them in here, and put water in the bottom. So when you water, it's going to get warm in here, and they're going to drink that water up. You may need to water 2 times a day, morning and evening. And if you can fill this tray with water, and they can sit in the water, they're going to do great. And it's much better than having them in this type of tray. Let me show you. And I have plenty of these where they sit in here, but the water drains through. These are great. Once they get going, put them in to carry them outside, or if you're giving them to somebody, to give them a tray. But for everyday use, the ones that collect the water are the best. So I've got to get all this stuff off of here, and this will be lined up 2 deep, 2 and 3 deep, coming out. And let's talk about what I start out here. And some of these things could be started right in the garden, but if you want to jump on the season, well, that's what a greenhouse is all about, is extending your season, spring and fall. You can bring things in and grow almost up till Christmas, lettuce and things in here. I'll start sage plants in here, herbs, oregano. I'll start marigolds. I do zinnias. You're better off putting the zinnia seeds in the garden unless you have ravenous rabbits. I'll start watermelons, pumpkin seeds in here. You can start them in the garden, but the rabbits eat them if you get them to a decent size in here. So I start my vegetables in some of the vegetables. Some of them we start in the garden. Peas we start in the garden. A lot of flowers. I do a lot of flowers in here. Hollyhocks. Now hollyhocks, the first year is the leaf. They don't flower till the second year. So I'll start those in here, and I'll transplant them in the garden, and on and on and on it goes. So this garden stores are selling seeds right now. And people, they're already buying them. So you want to get out early. And February and March, February is a good time to buy your seeds because they're still stocked. Don't buy your seeds unless it's a name brand from these discount houses, because they might be cheaper. They have 1/3 the seeds in them. So you're better off paying the $2.79. I don't want to give out any of the big names, but you know what they are. And they're the best. They really are the best. How I ended up with a greenhouse. I wanted a greenhouse since 1984, 40 years ago. I had been looking at kits, looking at books, how to build it yourself. Then 3 years ago, at this ripe old age, I thought, I don't know, I've always wanted one, and how old am I, and all this stuff. And my friend Jeff, who's also my pastor, was over, and he said, Richard, just do it. Do it. Why not? Well, don't let age, just do it, which, is a good lesson, not just for the greenhouse. This has given me a lot of joy, and it's great fun. The one thing I think about a lot, at some point, the house is going to have to be sold. We can't live here forever. I'm hoping to be gardening in my 90s, but I think to myself, somebody that comes out here, are they going to want to take over this garden? Is this garden going to get bulldozed? Or are they going to come in and put their thumb on it and put their design on it, which I think would be wonderful. I would like to think that a gardener would buy this house, or a retiree would come in, or somebody, and just come in and say, hey, I hate this, I love that, and put their imprint on it. One of the reasons I'm doing this video is years from now, when you never know what tomorrow's going to bring. If I would have health issues, or something for the grandkids to look at and remember all the wonderful times they had climbing over fences, picking flowers, riding their electric car around. The kids hate to go home. They can't wait to get here. I think that's wonderful. For me, this property has been magical. It has been a dream come true. When we first were married, we lived in a suburban area and worked for a major corporation, and dreamed about being in central Pennsylvania and having a farmette and being out in ag. And God really answered that prayer for me. Prayer works. So for me, this has been a blessing. Now, sometimes you can turn gardening into a curse. There are days where you like being out here 8 hours and it's fun, but you have to remember it's a hobby, and you have to tell yourself sometimes it's time to sit down and enjoy the garden. Sometimes you work so hard day after day and you're not enjoying the garden. You can make it into a curse, and you got to keep it a blessing. So I hope I've encouraged you to get out in your garden. Maybe get a small greenhouse, do a window greenhouse, grow on your kitchen counter under grow lights. Try to do some seeds, even if it's just one packet. It's fun. It's fun to plant a seed and watch them come up. It's a joy. It's being part of creation, and that's what Adam and Eve did, is create. They were in a creative garden that was beautiful. To garden is to partner with God, I think. So thank you for joining me today. It's been my pleasure, and be blessed.